Back to Granite Garden, guys. Today we are going to pop these bananas open and plant the majority of this garden. The cannas are gonna go in probably in a little bit. We have a couple cool nights coming up, so I don't want to risk them, but the bananas have already been out for like 3 days straight now, so they're good. We've got 2 bananas to put in, 2 bananas to take out of their little containers, and about 5 elderberries and a comfrey plant to put in. I'll probably end up putting like 1 or 2 more comfrey plants in here just for mulching purposes, chop and drop. But let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I changed the order. We're gonna dig and plant everything first because I'm gonna use a lot of this packing in here as mulch because all it is pine shavings. So we'll have another banana go there. Elderberry, 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 elderberry. Another banana over there, and then the whole front will end up being cannas. So go ahead and get everything planted, and then we'll pop these bad boys open and see what happens. I had to step away from the road. The traffic is starting to get a little heavy, so it's a little hard to hear out there. So far, I've got the comfrey put over there. I'm about to start the bananas and the elderberries. So with the comfrey, that stuff will grow in anything. It is robust as all get out. The elderberries, I just want to give a better head start. Same thing with the bananas. So I just put the comfrey back in the ground with the same dirt that I pulled out. I'll actually be adding a 2-to-1 garden soil and compost mix to the holes for the bananas and for the elderberries. What I'll also do is I've got a little bit of trifecta from in my gardener. I'll throw a little bit in the bottom and then a small amount on the top of each hole. And I've got some mycorrhizal inoculant, which is like a beneficial fungi. So it'll help break stuff down, but because it doesn't absorb as much as it actually breaks down, the plants will have heavier access to all the stuff that it helps break down. So very beneficial for the ground. And I'll just take that and I'll kind of like put it a little on the bottom and a little on the sides, not a whole lot. And that's pretty much it. You can also just sprinkle it in and plant right on top of it. The 3 elderberries I pulled out of my pawpaw food forest. It's getting a little crowded in there, so I'm going to try to start pulling things out and giving those pawpaws more space because they are growing significantly slower than everything else. So I'm definitely going to hit them a little hard this year to try to get them to boost up. And that's pretty much it. I'll go set the camera up there so I can show you guys what I'm doing, and hopefully it won't be too loud for you. But let's go check out the rest. So you can see in this bigger hole, this is for the bananas. These little light, kind of like khaki colored pellets, that is the mycorrhizal inoculant. They just inoculated like little dust balls basically. And then the darker stuff is the trifecta. So we'll put a small layer of the 2-to-1 dirt down, and then we'll go ahead and put the banana in, cover it up with the same thing, then do a little light amount of the trifecta on top. So that's a lot of the pine needles just down here as mulch. That'll come in handy for our next plan. We've got comfrey, the elderberries in, the bananas. Our plan did not work. The top's very rotted and mushy, but the further you go down, the more dense it actually is. So we'll just start cutting down and see how far we have to go to find some okay stalk, and then we'll go from there. This brown circle in the middle, not the greatest case, but it's still got nice, healthy white insides. The core itself is still nice and white. So we'll go ahead and cover up this with some of the mulch, and then we'll call it a day on this one and check the other one. So that is it for phase 1. The bananas up at the top had rotted. So probably about halfway down it started getting more dense. And I cut it to halfway mark, and like the majority, like probably over 50% of the outside rings were also really mushy. So I went ahead and cut it down all the way to the bottom. Like I showed you there, the core is still alive, and the majority of the central rings are also alive, so it should sprout once it hardens off and it starts getting a little bit warmer. So we lost our ability at the head start, but at least they survived. It'll change how we take care of them over the winter, and we'll see what we do this year with them. But I got the 2 planted, so we already had the backups, and plan B was a success. They grew inside all winter long, so that's amazing. So phase 2 will be something a little different, something you may not have seen before, but we're trying to do as much permaculture kind of methods as we can up there, and I'll show you what we do next tomorrow. All right, and that's everything planted today. We got cannas in the front and the sides. So I'm excited to show you guys what that's gonna look like. I'm excited to see it. So the cannas, more of a fence line kind of deal in the back, which will be great because of the cars. It'll hide my bananas. And that's pretty much all we added was elderberries, cannas, and comfrey, and the bananas from the inside that we overwintered. But I had to change my plans because of the size of the plants. I didn't want to smother anything with the amount of mulch I needed to put on. So I'll go ahead and get some extra mulch for out there to do a thin layer on top of the pine shavings, and we'll call it a day up there for now. So I moved my special project that was supposed to be up there back under the deck, which is cool, and I'll show you. So I've got ferns and hostas under here. This is Melissa's wild rose that she pulled out of the woods. So ferns, hostas, all the way around, everywhere. So this right here is wood chips that I bought from a landscaping company. And as you can see, it's got a lot of leaves, mulch, all kinds of green stuff, brown stuff, good stuff. And it was actually composting in our front yard. So it was actually in the driveway, not the front yard. But when I started digging into it to bring it back here, it was steaming, which is cool, which will actually benefit what I'm doing. So phase one was getting this bed of wood chips down, which is at least 2 inches in most places. I bought a yard. I believe they probably gave me slightly more than a yard, which is great. So what I'm gonna do next, because I can't do it today, I'm running out of daylight. Tomorrow, I'm gonna come out here and wet it down, and then I'll show you the extra special step to do something fun in a very unused place that just so happens to be the perfect habitat for something that you can eat. All right, so we have our first layer down, as you can see, the mulch. It's wood chips, got mixed in stuff, which is great because this will help the compost anyways. So all we're gonna do is we're gonna take our hose and we're gonna lightly moisten this bottom layer. We're not trying to soak it, we're just trying to get it relatively like 50-50 dry, 50 wet. So we're gonna try for that. And then we'll go ahead and spread the spawn. I'll get some gloves to make sure my hands are relatively clean, and then we'll just spread it. So what I'm gonna do, I will show you how to make the most bang for your buck instead of trying to spread everything so thin. I'll show you how to take care of the money aspect. So as you can see, we are just getting things wet. Remember, wood chips will absorb a lot of moisture. So we are just going to give everything a good, quick watering. And then I'll repeat this through the whole bed. This is our bag of mushroom spawn. It is made predominantly from some of the grain from the transfer, but predominantly just sawdust. So this specifically is from Norspore. They are from Michigan. They are a pretty reputable company. So the way for the most bang for your buck. We have this whole area. It could inoculate by spreading it thinly all the way around. But what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna take a single spot, layer it pretty heavily, and then move to another spot, layer heavily, and keep repeating that in maybe 4 to 5 places. That way we get heavy colonization in one space, allowing it to overtake anything else that may be living in the mulch that we put down. And then if we can get just a couple mushrooms here and there to fruit this year, we will actually only pick maybe a third of them. That way, they'll drop the spores and re-inoculate this entire area. It's kind of hard to see, but all these like chunky, really dark spots, that's the mushroom spawn. So we did maybe a 12 by 12 inch circle in this area. That'll give heavy colonization in this place. So like I said before, once we do get some fruits, we'll pick a few of them, but let the rest of them actually go to spore and die. That way they can spread through this whole area. Great thing about wine caps is they do survive over the winter. So the majority of the mycelium, the stuff that actually colonizes the mulch, probably won't survive through the harsh cold, but the spores that are currently in the ground, once they do fruit, they will. So they'll keep coming back year after year, and say maybe in 3 years when the mulch that we put down, probably 4 because I'm doing such a thick layer, eventually your mulch will start to break down to the point where there's not a whole lot of nutrients left in there, which is okay because all you have to do is just add some fresh mulch to it and you'll just keep regenerating the health of that mulch bed, and the mushrooms will just keep colonizing. You can keep one of these beds alive for pretty much your whole life. As long as you don't come in and disturb it really heavily, which is great because it's under the deck, so we don't have to worry about that. The deck will reflect some of the humidity back down, so we'll keep a pretty humid environment. The other thing is wine caps actually will do okay in some sun. So you could do walkways in your garden. You could do southern or north facing areas. You just don't want full sun all day in the middle of nowhere. It will burn them up. They're very water filled, so they're like 90% water. So if you put them somewhere really hot, it's going to get arid and they're going to dry out too fast. So your mycelium may grow in those kind of environments, especially if you water it and stuff like that, but they may never actually fruit because the circumstances, the environment is not necessarily tailored to it. So you can also use these, which was my original plan in the tropical garden, was to have them out there as a mulch layer dominant food source. So they would grow under the understory, and then I would have other plants in the mid area, and then obviously bananas, cannas, elderberries are going to get relatively large. So they would be my ground cover slash another layer of beneficial food that we can grow all in the same place. But because of the size of the stuff that I transplanted, I didn't want to put this much mulch down because it may actually smother the trunks of the smaller elderberries and stuff like that. So we moved it down here, which ultimately is probably going to be the better choice anyways, because it's less sun as out front, which gets full sun all day long almost, pretty much like 10 o'clock on. So we're now going to put our next layer of mulch down. We're going to spread it evenly across the whole thing since we already have 1.5 inches down here. By the same token, we should probably have about 1.5 inches to 2 inches on top. So we'll go ahead and start spreading this. All right, so as you can see, we only have this little area left, which is probably about 1 wheelbarrow full. Now I did this as evenly as possible all the way through. That's because if there's one thing I know is you don't want to run out. You don't want to run out of mulch. So I did it evenly all the way across. I'll get the last load in the middle, and then what I'll actually do is go back, look at my bird friend. And then I'll actually go back. Definitely remember where you put the spawn down. Find the places I put the spawn down and layer it a little bit more heavier in those places so there's plenty of space for it to grow, colonize, get nice and healthy, have plenty of nutrients, so we get mushrooms. Now, if you bought 5 or 6 bags for an area this size, you wouldn't need to worry about it. You would just thinly place it down. But we're all about experimenting here, so we're experimenting. Come experiment with us. And that's it. So that was 1 yard of each, probably a little bit over because it was bulk. Definitely wasn't short, that's for sure. So you can't really tell because it's all dark, but like I said, even coat, mound it up if you have extra over top of the places where you actually inoculated. And that's it. So more than likely with this environment, we should see some fruit by the end of this year. So right before winter, this fall, they should start fruiting. You'll also be able to tell if you've ever had a mulch bed that you've let go for a while on like your flowers or landscaping predominantly. You'll go back when it's old and you'll go dig it up and you see a lot of like white cobwebby type stuff interconnecting all the mulch together. That's mycelium. That might not be a mushroom that you want to eat, but it is a mushroom all the same. Not all mycelium fruits, so definitely get one you can eat. And don't forget to try to work different levels of gardening into what you already have. As you know, this is our garden. We have mulch in the walkway. That's our ground garden, so there's not mulch over there. We could probably benefit from some mulch. But if you have a space like this where you do a mulched walkway, you can inoculate it with mushrooms. If you have a bed like this where you keep straw on it all the time, or you do mulch your own garden beds like your raised beds, you can inoculate that as well. You have a walkway through your woods lined with pine shavings from trying to insulate bananas over the winter, you can inoculate that. You've got a dry, non-composting pile of crap in your backyard, you can inoculate that. Now this is where it can get tricky, out here in the woods. Predominantly when you think mushrooms, you think in the woods, and you would be correct. But here's the problem with stuff like this. So you see all this green foliage? It's gonna suck up everything out of the dirt right there. Now here's the good thing. Mushrooms don't predominantly grow in dirt. They will spread through it if there's enough plant matter, which is very forest floor friendly. Now take a look in here. It's a very shady, very canopy covered area. You don't have as much green back here, which is great because what you do see is all the dead leaves. You got some logs, sticks, all kinds of good brown matter. Brown is good. Green, not necessarily the greatest. Mushrooms do not grow in high nitrogen. They don't enjoy it. Some varieties probably do. I mean, we're just experimenting too, so definitely experiment. Definitely reach out to local people. Local people will probably give you a better deal on spawn, especially wine cap. If you live in our area, let us know next year if you're interested. And that's the coolest part about it. So all that mulch that we laid down up front, it will inoculate itself as it grows through. The mycelium will travel. It'll eventually fruit, right? You can actually take a piece, just scoop out a piece of mulch from the area close to where your original inoculation point was, pull it up, and if you see the mycelium, the white webby stuff growing through the mulch, you can take that, hand it to somebody else, and they can inoculate their own mulch. This is an extremely user-friendly, very beginner type of mushroom to grow. So if you already have wooded areas, or if you have mulched walkways, or if you mulch your gardens, they will not inhibit the growth of your regular plants. They will not harm anything in any way, depending on the type of mushroom that you grow, but the majority of them are symbiotic to like small plants. Because you're inoculating the mulch, they'll stay in the mulch. They won't necessarily infect the dirt. It can get in there, but not in the amount that it would take to actually harm your plants. Sorry for my mulch hands. So you can technically inoculate wall logs with wine cap too, but we did with the more predominant species. So like oysters, lion's mane, shiitake. We're all about experimenting here, and that's exactly what we're doing. We've grown a log before and it failed. We'll chalk it up to user error. We'll also chalk it up to poor instruction, but ultimately it was our fault. And we got a couple fruits off of it, which is great. But I have high hopes for this stuff because we set these up great. We have a mushroom bed under the deck now. That's pretty it from Shanty and me. Thanks for watching. We look forward to sharing more with you soon. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, like, subscribe, all the good stuff. Let us know if you're gonna start your own wine cap mushroom bed. Like I said, you can inoculate pretty much any woody substance anywhere. Just keep it out of direct sun. And that's pretty much very low maintenance. The mulch was wet. I might go hit it really quickly just to make sure everything's unanimous, but the mulch that I put on top was also already damp from all the rain we've had. Plus, we're about to have 4 days of rain in the future. So, you don't normally have to water those at all. They're not like the logs that dry out pretty quickly. It'll stay moist, especially under a deck with a lot of shade, very humid, great conditions. So, check it out. We'll keep you updated, and we look forward to sharing more with you soon, like I already said. I'm an idiot.